Welcome to the Human Game Console Podcast, episode number 12. In this video, I'll try to cut down to maybe 14 minutes, which surprisingly is cutting down because sometimes it gets longer than that. Whatever counts as rambling. 50 minutes as I said in the first vlog since 2018. But that was a joke, guys. So, yeah. There's a certain few ideas I can aim for in terms of Human Game Console or Human Game and all that I think will fit really well to at least 9 minutes or 6 minutes. But if not 14 minutes, it should be good enough time. I'll make it last, so. Um, Let us go with this one. It is more like the intense reality ones, but it's also like it relates to a few other ones I mentioned before. I mentioned things like cognizant by simulation, experiences portray the interests, all those other good quotes that are wordy in their own ways. But this is gonna be more. By the way, if you see the channel avatar or the banner and the arrangement of the video is different on the channel, it's because I'm always updating the other stuff. I was trying to make sure I could make it different, just grow and evolve as well know and love to do. But this thumbnail for this video is based on a fall 2019 channel banner, and it wasn't even the one I remembered easily. I remembered other ones easily. I remembered some of the other ones I used to make before, without being too specific about what those are. But I guess if you know, you know. But if you remember those, but other banners in 2019, 2018, other years later after that. But yeah, um, the the beauty of having an identity is that when you don't have to worry about being a specific person, as a not even a manifestation version, but being a certain person with certain traits and identities that don't have to make you vague or specific, they just happen to be there. It's a really cool thing. It's like, for me, when I said in other videos that I was kind of like the blob or the slime that could be interchangeable, and not mutable in a bad way, but more like being able to, like when I said the fishing pole and ocean analogy, there or inverse, it was more like I didn't know how to explain. Maybe not even just in a communicative way. That'd be even deeper, but other things is deeper and communicative wise, otherwise. That when you're not someone who has to have an identity, you don't necessarily forfeit the other identities you take up over time. It can be used as a model for you, but it's just for that reason alone. I think it's like when I made those arguments about how intense that reality can be, it's already an example of how the reality can be intense. But here was at least one other example that I have learned from my life that didn't have to necessarily help me in any fashion. It just happened to be there. It was when I think I learned certain things that didn't have to help me when they were just there. They were like the there was this one part of my life I wanted to learn a little better. Like sometimes we don't learn from our mistakes, or we don't learn how to move on until we have at least something to be bragging about. And that those two things don't even sound like they're the same thing, but sometimes they can be, right? But when you're there was one thing I thought I learned. It was more about the changing the game as per learning how to play the game kind of thing. As this is because this is the Human Game Console podcast that we're talking about here, so I might as well mention it at least once in this episode. But when you change the game first, it doesn't teach you any better how to play it, but you eventually do get to learn how to change the game after playing the game for a long time. Not just as a sacrificial exchange, but because it happens to be there. It happens to be its own thing. It doesn't have to be a gift or reward for that, or bonus, multiplier, or whatever. It just, you'll be able to be better equipped for it in the first place, and that's what you want to have. What I did thought I learned was not necessarily a way I could follow a purpose for my life, or even just to know that I could change the game as a positive consequence of being able to learn how to play the human game. But it was still there. Here was the lesson. It was about more of the purpose thing. It was like it was about the it was about insightful rally point culture, and that was the one where I keep playing that Travian PNG over and over on my website, which I don't know if I'll be able to keep that along. That's another story. Uh, it was the one where I realized that even if this was kind of a weird point in this weird way as describing purpose, it was still useful nonetheless. This was the one where I said that insight rally point culture would help me understand how to follow a purpose and not just have only one purpose. Even though I'm so heavily against Mark Manson's interchangeable purpose that's beyond yourself kind of thing. He has good intentions, and those supposed to be stereotypical in a good way, but I would always be able to debate, and not necessarily in an argumentative way, even though I'm pretty sure people don't know even what argument even means. But let alone rambling at, but that you can have a purpose chosen ahead of time permanently, and you can still be able to stick with it, and it can be about yourself. But the instant right point culture essentially at that point was still about other people and not just myself and other things in life. But this version of the insight right point culture was more like the idea that you could do things that have nothing to do with each other in life and still have them connect to each other, and then be able to tie those ties together with your own thoughts or mentality, if the same thing, and then you'd be able to find out a way to make sure that those ties come together. That was one way that even if that was changing the game and not having to know what I was doing with my purpose and life lessons, you still get what I'm saying here. Like, it's basically like I don't have to learn a all powerful life lesson or an all powerful I got to change the game after I finally played it. Now I will never play it ever again. No, I'm actually being sincere. I don't have to get, even if I did, whether I did or not, get a way to change the game. I'm grateful that I got to play in the first place, and I do not cap when I say that. It was his own thing, knowing that I could just be myself in a world where the reality was intense, and the things that happened to be in this reality were not in too much vain suffering. And as per that purpose went. If you know, you know. But that's more like the Napoleon Hill style, the Neural Nightingale style person I made up. Which, by the way, having a permanent purpose that you make up on the spot that could be about yourself is not a bad thing. It just means that you have a different purpose than people would expect. I wasn't even that specific with my purpose, but I didn't even have to cap on the idea that you could just write something or think of something as a purpose, and even if it wasn't a specific example of what you wanted to become, goal and strategy behind where you're going, how you get there, it would not be the worst way to do it. I'm gonna push for about 2 more minutes until this video ends. Maybe I'll do an end card early somehow. End card content before an end card. That'll be funny. Let's do the next 20 seconds for that, just in case. Fake end card. So wrapping up ahead of time. Reality is intense, but you can still find ways to get what you want and what you need, and more than that, as per my last channel name. If you're able to get more than what you want and what you wanted, what you thought was a lot, you still have more than you thought. Anyway, I had to squeeze that in. Okay, so a few more minutes. Yeah, it's just that is one way that you can find it in yourself. That when you change the game, it's not because you only had a way to get there for the step ladder of being able to play the game, but you don't want to change the game before playing the game. You want to be someone who can negotiate playing the game, whether you get that opportunity or not. And I would dare say you get that opportunity in spite of being able to change the game, as a only way you could do it, but at least a way to do it possible. And if it was like that, then it wouldn't be that bad anyways, in my opinion. But last minute I'll give for you, and that's the fake end card 720. So I'm not gonna cap on the last 20 seconds of this video, but I'll still try to deliver. The human game is not supposed to be seen as a video game. You could gamify it, but as per this episode 12, I will say that when you know how to change the game and you finally get to, it does not matter. Like I said before, it does not matter how valuable or pointless what you got from that aspect of changing the game happened to be. It doesn't matter how valuable or pointless it was, if it even was in the end of this, how playing the human game would happen. You get to decide what your purpose is. You get to decide what makes your intense reality its own blessing. Even if things didn't happen the way you thought they would, you didn't have the identity you thought you would, and you didn't have to live the life you chose to, or didn't have a choice to. Either way, you get to decide how you play this game.